Greetings and God bless. So, over the years, I would say maybe I started noticing it maybe like 2005 or 6. But well before then, I would say even in the 90s, I went to a liberal college and everybody was, majority of people were hardcore guy who did ROTC, and he got a lot of flack because he was an all-American guy and he was courageous enough to go to this very extreme progressive liberal college. And he did ROTC. I think he was the only one on campus. And, just I observed all this hatred uh, aimed at men, white or black or whatever, for fear. So women have been terrorized by rapists and murderers, family members, people in positions of power who are male. And this is also uh, made worse when the women in the family or in the workplace turn a blind eye or actually participate in the torture, harm, rape, incest of little girls or women, females in whatever situation, church, work, home. So, because I'm even today I'm scared, because just anything can happen, and you're on your own, and everything's your fault, and whatever, what did you do? Like that's just the mentality. Unless you have some type of leverage, everything is really your fault because nobody really wants to face it. Your closest family members, your closest friends, nobody wants to see this. Nobody wants to deal with it. Nobody likes really dark things. That's why the whole Pizzagate and child human trafficking and all sorts of things that cause people to become drug addicts, which I think is probably being incested or raped or violated one way or the other by the trusted agents of the public good when you're a child. I think that's what it's all about, and very few people want to deal with it. And because everybody's like, oh, I've got my trip to Thailand I've got to work on, and I've got to get my hair done, and I've got to get that big new truck, and I've got to get that new gay lover, I mean, everybody is just busy fulfilling their needs and wants, and to hell with everybody else, except for a few people who do care and who do take a step back and um, contribute to their loved ones. So, something though about this toxic masculinity. So, what I noticed is so in the 90s when I graduated college, I went to like gay clubs and stuff where there was just a lot of gay men. And I felt safer because I'm like, well, a gay man is not going to try to make a pass at me. He's not going to try to rape me. And uh, and that that was the case. And what I noticed is that uh, since I've grown out of, like, I don't know, I mean, when you become an adult, you can become a little bit more secure. And but what I've noticed is, so there's this hatred of traditional males, like traditional maleness, masculinity. There's this hatred by feminists and by the LBGT community. And yet, if a gay man sees a very attractive masculine man, all those gay men want that man. And the same goes for feminists. If a feminist who's heterosexual, uh, biological woman, if she sees this very handsome masculine man, she also is attracted to that guy. She may have married a beta male, but this masculine intact male is very compelling. And it's just this irony that young men are being demonized about being masculine, as well as heterosexual, as well as their biological gender. And but in reality, uh, they're needed, they're and they're desired, and the very people that loathe and hate them actually really do want them. It's very sick and twisted. I don't know what this psychological op is, but that is something that I just personally observed. And it's just tragic. It's tragic how men are demonized for their maleness. Like Brene Brown was talking about this in, I don't know, the early 2000s, about how men are so isolated and, held to a lot of responsibility, and they don't get love. And because they didn't marry for love, they married an attractive woman who had her needs, and he just became her money thing, or her um, just something that she had to do for respectability. Like I was sitting in a coffee shop, I think it was in Iowa, and this lady was talking about all this work that needed to be done in her house. And she was so mercenary. And I think she was talking about her husband, but I was just like, oh man, like she just was a manager. She was just a foreman of a building project. And there was no love, there was no connection, there was nothing in the interaction between her and the husband. And she was talking really loud too. I was like 10 seats away or something like that, and I don't want to hear anybody's conversation. But she was like, yeah, I know I sound so mean or whatever. And I was just like, ugh. And I think I eventually moved, because it's just like, what a horrible person. Is this like a machine? Is this a demon? And yeah, we live in a very perverted world where women are just, they've got they're keeping up with the Joneses, and they don't have heart or soul. And they're just about politics or something, or virtue signaling more than the other person, and like hiding their own complicity to this decline of civilization, the decline of humanity. That's what feminists have done. That's what this pro LBGT thing has done. That's even what this environmentalism has done, because this environmentalism is built on the child slave labor of children around the world, particularly Africa, where the components, the materials, the raw materials for electrical vehicle batteries, or solar panels. That's where it is. It's dug, hand dug in the ground by child slaves. And the liberal presidents have started up. They have been a factor in like slavery starting up in Africa again, in Libya. An adult male can be sold for like $300 or something like that. And the left does not care in America today. As of August 2023, the left does not care, is not concerned about slavery in Africa now, child slavery for their electric products. The left does not care. The left wants to do its virtual signaling, to wear the masks, to get their children and grandchildren, have their children's nether regions chopped up, because they are superstitious culture. That is what is going on in the left today. They have this myth about climate change, even though these very self-same liberals are driving, taking planes, just doing everything that is the boogeyman of global warming. But they think they can. That's what I notice about progressive liberals, is they're like, well, I should be able to get to fly, and my whole family should be able to get to fly and drive and have multiple cars and have a big footprint on the planet and keep on having more children. But those people in Africa should die. Those people in China should do population control. The poor white people, or poor black people, or whoever's poor in America, the poor Mexicans, everybody should be on birth control, except for me, the progressive liberal, and my family. We should be able to, because we're smarter, because we're liberal, and we have money and power right now. And so that's just the, might is right. And 20 years ago, I mean, or whenever Republican is in power, if that same thing mentality was expressed, a progressive liberal would totally have a meltdown and set something on fire. So yeah, there's this perverted mentality right now on the left, and it's a superstitious mentality. They have a superstition about global warming. They have a superstition that they have to get their children gay or trans, and that's going to make everything good, that their life is going to be good. They're going to have a great social life. They're going to have, look good on social media, getting their child change from a boy to a girl, or grandchild change from a girl to a boy. And who cares if it's a lifetime of surgery, and if their reproductive organs don't ever work properly and are in constant pain. Who cares about that? Who cares if they're psychotic from the medications? And who cares if they're in pain? What matters to the progressive left is looking good and virtue signaling as hard as possible, just doubling down on that. So we have the LBG push. We have, like chopping up the children's nether regions push. We have the masking and getting the pokes push lurking in the background. We have the fake climate change push. And is there one other? Oh yeah, the critical race theory, that the only way that the past can be fixed for Africans that were brought is for racism to be perpetuated against white people. That is the basis. That is the mode of resolution, that white people need to experience discrimination. And I would say, I think Asian people are actually put in that for some reason, because Asians, even though they're people of color, they've been people of color ever since I started learning about this in the 80s. Even though Asians, and I bet they're going to try to throw Native Americans in with Asians because there's a similar apparent appearance. However, if you look at the quality of life of welfare Black Americans as opposed to Native Americans on reservations, Native Americans are really, like, it's just, CRT could be eaten for lunch by the Native Americans. But will they do it? No, nobody's going to do anything, because the Native Americans have been infiltrated by Marxists, and they have been told, the Native people have been told, oh, you gotta confront white people and demand reparations. As if you and I, if whoever you are, as if you did something 300 years ago to whoever, because where were you? Were you here 300 years ago? Do you have a time machine? I want to get into that time machine. Like, I'll do reparations if I can go to that time and do the things. But yeah, so this CRT, like I just read yesterday that a principal committed suicide because he was accused of being a white racist superiority person, and nothing he could say was acceptable. And the CRT consultant just was like, you think but you don't, because you're white, and there's no way you can ever know anything. There's no way you can ever be right. That's what CRT is. It's this Marxist, satanic, anti-white, anti-Asian, anti-human thing where it's an ultimate. CRT is gaslighting. It's gaslighting to a Marxist, anybody who opposes this Marxist agenda. Because what CRT is trying to do is take wealth and take it for themselves. They're not intending for, like, if there's reparations that are going to go out, it's going to be stolen by somebody else. That is just what happens when money is sent to different countries that have a disaster like Haiti or whatever. The regular people don't ever get the money. It's the people, the middlemen, that steal all the money. And that's what will happen that's what happened with BLM. BLM had millions of dollars, and what happened? That co-founder bought 3 different mansions and nothing went to anybody else, but nobody says anything about it. Even the friends that I've had who are pro BLM, they don't. They're like, oh well, so she got millions of dollars for her mansions, you know, like nobody thinks that like that should have been distributed to victims of the BLM riots, let's say, like to the businesses that were the black small independent businesses that were set on fire and destroyed during the riots. No, nothing's nobody cares. You know, all they want is this next, like how can they virtue signal in the next moment? How can they get more clicks on how hard they're virtue signaling about the climate, about getting chopped up for a sex change, or for how much hate they can spew for white people and Asian people and anybody who doesn't want who anybody who objects to hating anybody who objects to bigotry against whites and Asians. Well, like that's the problem. That's a problem to this CRT psychosis. So this is all superstition, and I have noticed the left, my leftist friends and family, they're in the superstition. They think if they are anti-white and if they push the critical race theory, if they push the global stuff, global warming superstition, and if they push the LBGT pedo grooming superstition, they think if they do these superstitions, that's going to make their life better, at least their life, they may think that they're going to fix society that way, but they're just thinking it's going to make my day-to-day go smoothly. And maybe it is for somebody temporarily right now, but we are seeing a destruction of civilization, of humanity, and it's going to also be the earth. Like, people are like, well, I hate humans, so it's okay if humans die. But these globalists who hate humans, who are demonized, they are demonized by Satan. Like, Satan not only hates human beings, not only does Satan want everybody to go to hell, but Satan wants to desecrate God's creation. So that's why Satan does all this pedophilia and satanic ritual abuse. And that's why there's this terraforming with the graphene oxide and the 5G and the chemtrails and all this other stuff that's in our food, air, water, and who knows what in the frequencies of the air. Because Satan's trying to alter creation. And God knows everything and is in charge, and he defeated Satan about 2,000 years ago. So things have to just get so bad that Jesus returns to bring judgment to earth. So yeah, I just hope that happens soon. And unfortunately, folks are going to really miss out because they don't really understand the Bible, and they just assume that if they use their own wits, they're gonna life is gonna go smoothly and things will work out. Or maybe people think they can just dissociate until they die. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. I think a lot of people are not. I think they're out of their minds. They're going to work or whatever, but they're doing drugs and drinking and playing video games and doing other, I don't know what else, but they're not really in their life. They're not existing in their life. And because life is very painful, it's not quite hell, but it's very uncomfortable. And so I can understand why, but even when things are really painful, you've got to, take a look around and care, like you're not here just to be a wallflower unless you're some sort of robot or clone or something, which who knows, maybe that's all those people that are just seemingly going along with the with the majority. So, anyways, yeah, it's we are living through a terrible time in history, and what I think makes it worse, one of the worst times in history, is because we are all generally pitted against each other. I don't think there's ever been a time of a catastrophe where everybody kind of hates everybody else, everybody's afraid of everybody else, because nobody knows who the real enemy is. Like, very few people really know who their real enemy is, and there's just so many complex fractures of awareness. And you know, I think we are the most emotionally immature group of humans ever, because we've been suckling at social media and mobile phones for 10-20 years. So people really do not have experience with conversation and the stamina of banter and companionship. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. So, and I know it's worse. It's worse for people who are born into this nightmare of, I see parents giving their toddler a tablet, while they're grocery shopping or whatever, and I'm just like, and the child is just hypnotized, and it's totally blue light, amped up as loud as the tablet can be, and then the cartoons, and it's like a little baby, a toddler cannot resist that amount of stimulation, but parents are like, oh yeah, have the tablet babysit my child, have the tablet bring up my child. Like in the past, in the 70s and 80s, TV was always on in my home, and but there was at least some kind of decency. It wasn't as lewd and uh, you know satanically suggestive. And I mean, I know there's mind control probably in Sesame Street and TV shows in the 70s and whatnot, but it was just like, the public would not have accepted what's common news and shows and music today. Like, if what we have today was distributed in the 50s or 60s, public wouldn't buy it. The public would be like, what kind of crap TV show is this? What kind of crap music is this? Like, people were still decent, even the hippies and stuff like that. Like, people have better taste. Like, nowadays, there's nobody has any good taste. Very few people have good taste. Good taste in clothing, good taste in manners, good taste in art. And I think, like, people are trying to, they hate femininity and masculinity, and they hate the classics, and they hate standards. Like, that's what this CRT thing is. It hates standards. It considers standards racist. And the thing is, if any person of color has good diction, good posture, good manners, kind demeanor, good actions, is reliable, the CRT will call that, all those things, being racist. It's insane, but that is, I think that's what it's showing, and they're trying to erase, like, CRT and the LBGT thing, and even at the environmentalism. They're trying to erase ultimately humanity, but they're starting out with what is our standard, and our standard is high culture, and that's going to be the best literature, what's the standard for literature, and the standard for music, and the standard for architecture, and the standard for math, and the standard for science, real science. So they're trying to take away the foundations of that, and it's insanity. Like, that's why it's a superstition. But liberals won't. Liberals are so naive, and I think maybe they're really, maybe they are really racist. Uh, maybe they really don't. Maybe they really do hate black people or something like that, and that's why they're buying into this CRT thing. Because it's not just money that must be the motivator, because these leftists are subjecting their children and grandchildren and themselves to this CRT superstition, and it's very violent. So, is that why liberals are so into this? And ultimately, what I think, I do think there's a problem in the world, and I think it's classism. I think there's these glass ceilings, regardless, whether you're white or whatever. I think there are these glass ceilings. And what I notice about successful, like my successful peers, or what I'm observing of other of new immigrants, whose family were arrived here off the boat, so to speak. The parents really invested a lot of money into their children and made sure their children had good clothes and good education and learned how to play music and stuff like that. Like, and again, even though this is a Mexican family or Asian Indian people, like, they really invest in their children, and their children become CEOs and really successful. And in America, I would say that, since I was born in '69, but what I notice is the white people around me, we are told to hate ourselves. And unless you come from like maybe a more well educated home. But, like, when I was in elementary school, we saw the environmental movie where the Native American guy, so-called guy, he was probably some European guy who was given a headdress, but with the tear, and basically, like I was told all my life, you're polluting the earth. So I never learned how to drive. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna. At least I won't be polluting the earth, so I won't learn how to drive. And even now, progressive liberal friends and family, they hate humans. They think humans are killing everybody, killing the planet just by existing. And I think the problem really is classism, uh, and I think this classism has gotten worse. I would say it's worse now in 2023 than in times past, because I've always been poor, extremely poor, like zero money, and I never really felt degraded or disrespected in the past. But I would say maybe in the past, maybe 10 years. And it's very interesting, like with the Obamas and the Clintons, like this weird competition, keeping up with the Joneses mentality really took off. Everybody is like having to be some sort of jet setter and influencer and look like a model and have 2.5 kids and have a dog who has perfect grooming and have a perfect husband and have a fancy car and have a fancy home and have a second home and this and that and the other thing and a great career, right? It's crazy. It's too much to ask, and yet people and like our influencers, our role models know this is too much, but they're good at passing like they're doing everything. And I really think, like with the lockdowns, so a lot of people who were able to afford their apartments, even though they lost their jobs and stuff like that, they were subsidized by their parents and grandparents. And so they were still going out for margaritas, and today they still are, even though they didn't get the injection, or maybe they did. But um, and when so these people are influencing those around them, so those around them cannot afford to go out to margaritas. They may have even lost their place. They may be homeless, but because their peers, everybody's just acting like it's normal. Everybody's buying the margaritas and going to Bali and blah blah blah, even though it's 2023 and people are still struggling after the lockdowns. And I think that's a problem. I think when you're doing conspicuous consumption during a crisis, like and the thing is, nobody wants to tell you that they lost their home, that they lost their job, that they don't have any money. Like, and that's where the classism comes in. So people are trying to pretend like they have, make $300,000 a year when they don't. When they make 5,000. Like where, and yet there's these goalposts, that this fantasy that so many have of being like this uber successful whatever in everything. They're and it's like, when you've got 10 things you're exceptional at, number one, you're not exceptional at all those. Your nannies are raising your children. Your dog is, I don't know, dissociated, or your cat or whatever, like, or maybe that's your best friend and you don't even interact with your husband or your children. So I really think people need to start learning how to be human again, and stop trying to be the star of your show, like where you're the most beautiful character and you're the most whatever character. I think people need to discover what is uniquely them, and stop posting videos of your children having a meltdown, or of your cat smacking your kid or something like that. I think that's the most disgusting um, thing, the epitome of the worst of humanity. As of 2023, is people thinking it's funny when their cat hits their child, or hits their friend in the eye, or the dog falls off the thing. Like, or their child is screaming and crying, and people just film their children like they're filming a cop, who's doing abuse or something like that. Like the Rodney Spring, whatever, I forget what but like, it's disgusting. Like, stop doing that, parents. Parents, stop complaining how hard it is to have children, to raise children, to make ends meet. Like, you had a children, and yeah, I know it's hard, but you also get a lot of breaks because people know how hard it is to raise children. So stop taking advantage of people. You know, um, like, when you need help, yeah, get help, but stop expecting everybody to stop. Like, let you have everything you want because you happen to have two kids. Because that's as a single person. And I helped raise my younger brother and sister, and that was enough of a chastity belt for me. Like, I'm like, this is too hard. This is too hard for a single person to do. And I'm so glad I don't have any children. I'm so glad I don't have any grandchildren to worry about them being trafficked by whoever, because that's all business is now. Everything is basically trafficking. Trafficking in children, trafficking in vulnerable people. And those who have leverage don't care. They don't want to know. Why? Because this is so horrible. That's the thing. The things that are really, really bad, nobody wants to know anything about it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. And they're going to deny it until they die, So, yeah, I covered a million different things in this, but I just wanted to put some ideas out there. So what do you guys think?